Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Thursday, November 12th, 2015. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and Change. I am Dan Rubin. If it's Thursday, it can mean only one thing. Steve Wiltfong, Director of Recruiting for 24/7 Sports. Steve, how are you this fine morning?
Good morning, Daniel. Doing well. What's happening, man? I'm sending a whole lot of wind through Dayton into Columbus. I don't know, does wind travel the same as other weather?
Yeah, I'm not sure of that answer. Went to the Harvard of the Midwest, of course, and they didn't teach that class. But I drove my son to school this morning, and it was sunny and windy. Definitely weird fall weather, but at least the temperature is a little bit better than it has been in standard gray Gem City, so we'll get through it. Speaking of getting through it, Ohio State had a big visitor last weekend that we've discussed at length, Daelin Hayes out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. Maybe a little bit more interesting than the average recruit because it seems like it's a three-pronged attack for his recruitment here. Ohio State, Michigan State, and Notre Dame. Three of, I guess you want to include Michigan in there, the four major Midwest recruiting towers. What, now that the dust has kind of settled, what are you hearing about Hayes' visit? We know he's going to Michigan State this weekend. And he has some other visits scheduled, but I get the sense this weekend could be the end of his recruitment, really, in terms of the decision-making process. What's the latest on old Daelin?
Well, first, talking to Daelin after the visit, he had an outstanding time. Myself and Bucknuts insider Bill Kurlick had two different stories. Bill's story touched on a lot of the things that blew Daelin away from the Real World Wednesdays. I think that's what it's called. I hope I didn't butcher that. Real Life Wednesday. And I think that the connections that an Ohio State football player has because of Coach Meyer and that staff into the professional world was something that was very exciting to Daelin, in addition to just the football culture and the opportunity to get a chance to compete right away were all things that Daelin touched on with Bill and then with me again. And then the thing different in my article that Daelin said that was a little different was Urban Meyer quickly made such an impression on his mom. That's now his mom's favorite coach. And then switching gears, talked to some sources close to the Buckeyes program, and I think that they think it went really well. And one source thinks that he's going to end up at Ohio State, but thinks it's a tight battle with Notre Dame. So for me, I have no idea what Daelin's going to do. It looked for months that he was going to go to Notre Dame if it wasn't USC. And then talking to some sources going into the Ohio State visit, a few people thought it would be Ohio State or Michigan State, and Notre Dame may have slid back, but it sounds like Notre Dame's still right there in there. So honestly, I'm not sure where he's going. I do think Michigan State's got an opportunity to really make an impression this weekend. And then kind of like what you said, I do think that there is a chance that Daelin doesn't even take those other two visits and then makes a decision shortly after he goes to Michigan State, and obviously he's enrolling early. So that's where that stands. Buckeyes have a chance to sign one of the best athletes in the Midwest. Certainly Daelin's had a lot of adversity to face during his career with injuries, but there's no denying his upside as an athlete, and he's the type of guy that you take a chance on because in addition to that upside athletically, he is a good guy. He'll be a great guy in your locker room, smart kid, just a good guy to be around. So he's a guy that I have no problem rolling the dice on if I'm any of these programs.
Yeah, he's visiting Michigan State this weekend. Michigan State's interesting because they've recently dropped three kids from their class. Jonah Morris, defensive back, an athlete prospect out of Akron. Abdul Adams, running back prospect out of Washington, D.C., and Naquan Jones, defensive tackle prospect out of the Midwest. Speaking of Ohio State's interest in defensive tackles, or bringing it up, is Naquan Jones someone that's now on their radar, you think?
Well, Naquan didn't mention Ohio State to me. He mentioned Ole Miss, Florida, and Nebraska right away. I do think he'll be open to any school that wants to pursue him. But Naquan's got some things he's got to take care of away from the gridiron. There's no denying that he's a fantastic football player. He's a guy Michigan State certainly wanted to sign from a football standpoint. But I don't think that he was in a position to be able to sign with the Spartans at this point. So I'm not sure where he's going to land right now without, I guess being blunt and saying where I think he's going to end up. So he's a nice kid, and I hope it works out for him, and he's going to take some visits, but I know he's got some things he's got to take care of for any of it to work out.
Yeah, we're definitely – the only reason I bring him up is
right, and the same thing goes with Abdul Adams, the running back that Michigan State lost the verbal from. He's another young man that has some things that he needs to take care of off the football field, but he was another really good player, one of the better running backs in the country, and what is not a great running back year. Abdul Adams was a guy that could have went pretty much anywhere, just needs to take care of the total package. And then Jonah Morris is just a kid that, Michigan State wants players that want to be Spartans, and Jonah Morris, although he's committed to Michigan State, sure took some visits to some other campuses. So that'll fast track you right out of the Michigan State recruiting class like it did for Jonah.
Speaking of Michigan State, are you still feeling that Donnie Corley, I know he's a receiver that Ohio State's still in the mix with, I've gotten the vibe that he's going to go to Michigan State. Or do you still have that same vibe, or do you think the Buckeyes are still in it?
Especially if King keeps winning. I don't know if Donnie will be able to take another visit before December 8th because the state championship game for Michigan will be over Thanksgiving weekend. Maybe he'll be able to take a visit that first weekend in December, the 5th. But that's, Ohio State's got plans for the Big Ten championship game that weekend. So I don't know if Corley's going to be able to make it back to Ohio State before he decides on the 8th, which is his mom's birthday. But everything I'm hearing right now, Michigan State, certainly Ohio State, Tennessee, Notre Dame at different times of the process, maybe even led, but certainly gave them a lot to think about. I was told Ohio State has led for Donnie before, but it sounds like he's going to be a Spartan based on everything we're hearing right now.
I got the same vibe. Speaking of positive vibes about receiver, obviously there's not a lot of names to talk about down the stretch here for the Buckeyes. They're focused on a limited group of guys who are elite, and we know that can take a time to work itself out. But one guy that we are feeling rather confident about, his most recent crystal ball pick to Ohio State came on October 7th, courtesy of Steve Wiltfong. And though he's 72% predicted to the Gators, should I feel confident about my man crush in the class, Benjamin Victor, the receiver out of Coconut Creek?
Yeah, I think Ohio State's clearly the team to beat right now for the U.S. Army All-American, outstanding receiver, perhaps the best ball skills in the country, Benjamin Victor. Obviously some highly reputable Buckeyes reporters crystal balled Benjamin before I did, but I talked to some sources that made me feel really good about my crystal ball pick as well for the blue chip recruit for the Sunshine State. I think the one thing to continue to monitor is who does Miami hire and will it impact his recruitment? I think right now it doesn't matter. Ohio State will probably still sign him, but certainly something to keep an eye on because, Who
are some names that could go to Miami, do you think they could pull it off?
Well, it'd be tough to speculate that that's a guy Benjamin Victor would react to, I just think he's in a wait-and-see mode with the Miami job. And then I think Miami should hire Dino Babers. I don't think that his name's even really being mentioned for the job, and Miami fans would be like, who the hell is Dino Babers? But people living in Ohio know who Dino Babers is. That offense travels well. But I'm not sure who Miami's going to hire. I'm not sure who Benjamin Victor would react to. I just think that whoever Miami hires would be crazy not to call Benjamin Victor right away and try and get him on the campus. And I think he'd be willing to listen.
Yes, gripping on that, Dino Babers is the head coach at Bowling Green, which has had some super impressive wins, and there's been some coaches who've been head coach that have gone on to do some decent stuff. I don't know if you knew that. Definitely good news on Benjamin Victor. I hope people understand the idea of putting Benjamin Victor and Austin Mack on the edges for Ohio State really is one of the revolutionary things they can still do with their team. It's kind of a very, very talented squad, but I think we've talked about the bookend defensive ends coming in and Jonathan Cooper and Nick Bosa. I think the class will be equally known for receivers if Benjamin Victor and Austin Mack are the guys on the edges.
Maybe tight end, too, because you got two of the nation's best tight ends coming in Hoffman and Farrell.
Fantastic point by Steve to finish it up there. It's a gluttony of talent. Let's hope it works out. Have a great day, Bucknutters.